The galaxy was burning. On the edge of known space, a world too small to matter to most stood trembling beneath the shadow of its own doom. The planet was called Yet-Har, though few outside its system had ever heard the name. To the galaxy, it was just another colony, one of thousands, filled with people who lived simple lives, farmers, traders, and dreamers who never thought of war. But war had found them. 4 weeks now, the skies above Yet-Har had been torn open by the vast fleets of the Zorath Empire. The Zorath were conquerors, cold and merciless. Their empire stretched across 100 stars, enslaving species, draining worlds, and crushing resistance wherever it appeared. Against them, Yet-Har had no chance. The people of Yet-Har were a small species, frail in body and poor in arms. Their soldiers were little more than militia. Their defenses were old, their ships outdated, their weapons barely enough to hunt raiders, let alone hold back an empire. When the first Zorath fleet arrived, the colony resisted. Their small defense ships rose into the sky, their ground troops rallied. But the battle ended in minutes. Their fleet burned, their defenses collapsed, and their enemy descended. The Zorath did not take Yet-Har all at once. They wanted it to suffer. That was their way. They circled the planet like wolves, bombarding one city after another, enslaving survivors, leaving nothing but fire and ash. And the Yet-Hari, those who still lived, did the only thing they could. They cried out. Across the void, they sent distress calls, messages carried on every frequency, every channel. They called for mercy, for aid, for someone, anyone, to hear them. Please, we beg you, our world is falling. The Zorath are here. We cannot resist. We cannot survive. If anyone can hear this, please, help us. The signal raced into the dark. Past barren systems. Past forgotten ruins. Past merchant lanes and forgotten gates. But no one came. No one answered. The galaxy had heard this story too many times before. The Zorath were feared. To challenge them was suicide. And yet Har was nothing, just one more colony to be erased from the stars. Days turned into weeks. Cities burned. Families vanished. The Yet-Hari hid in caves, in ruins, in the shadows of their broken world, clinging to life even as the Empire's grip tightened. Hope was a memory. Despair was all that remained. And then, something changed. High above Yet-Har, in what was left of the planetary command center, a handful of officers huddled around dim screens. Their uniforms were torn, their faces hollow from hunger and grief. Yet still, they kept sending the call again and again, though they no longer believed anyone would hear. The commander, a tired Yet-Hari named Taran Voss, pressed a clawed hand against the console. His voice was rough, cracked, but steady as he sent what he thought would be their last message. This is Commander Voss of Yet-Har. If anyone can hear us, this is our final call. The Zorath have broken our defenses. They take our people. They burn our cities. No help has come. No one listens. If this message is the last, then let it carry our truth. We resisted. We did not bow. And though we die free. His officers lowered their heads. The transmission ended. Silence filled the room. And then, the sensors beeped. At first, they thought it was nothing, a glitch, the dying breath of a broken machine. But the signal repeated. Strong. Steady. A ripple in the void above them. Commander, one officer whispered, her voice trembling. Something is entering orbit. The commander froze. More Zorath. No, not Zorath. The officer leaned closer to the screen. I don't know what this is. Outside, the night sky shimmered. Yethar's moons glowed faintly, their craters lit by distant starlight. And then, beyond them, the stars themselves seemed to bend. Space rippled, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. And ships emerged. Dark, angular shapes, cutting through the void like blades. Not sleek like Zorath vessels, nor clumsy like merchant freighters. These ships carried a weight in their design, scarred hulls, armored plating, and weapons that glowed with restrained fury. Dozens of them. Perhaps more. The HFY gasped. They had never seen such ships before. No records matched. No insignia showed. No banners flew. Only silence. The command center trembled with whispers. Who are they? What world do they serve? Are they friend or foe? The sensors flickered again. A signal. A transmission. The sound cut through the static, low, steady, spoken in a language the HFY had never heard. Yet somehow, through their translators, the meaning came clear. One word. One name. Earth. Far above, the Zoreth fleet circled HFY, confident in its victory. Their warships drifted like predators, their crews laughing at the suffering below. But when the unknown ships appeared, laughter turned to silence. The Zoreth had ruled for centuries. They had charted the stars, enslaved 100 worlds, fought countless wars. And yet, they did not know this fleet. It did not match any ally, any rival, any record in their archives. And the Zoreth feared what they did not know. Identify them. Their commander barked. His officers scrambled, but the answers did not come. The ships were alien, alien even to them. And they had come without warning, without herald, and without fear. On the ground, the HFY huddled in ruins and bunkers, staring up at the night sky. For the first time in weeks, the fire raining down had stopped. The Zoreth ships shifted uneasily, their bombardment ceasing as they turned to face the newcomers. The HFY dared to hope. Children pointed to the sky, asking their parents who had come. Elders whispered prayers. Fighters clutched their broken weapons, unsure whether to cheer or hide. Commander Voss stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He had expected death. He had expected silence. Instead, strangers had answered. And yet the question burned in every mind, every heart, every whisper across the planet. Who answers us now? Who dares challenge the Empire? The skies above HFY grew darker, the stars hidden behind the shapes of the unknown fleet. The Zoreth watched. The HFY trembled. And across the galaxy, though none yet knew, the balance of power was about to shift forever. For the first time in living memory, the Empire was not alone in the void. And neither was HFY. The night over HFY had grown unnaturally still. The flames from the last bombardment still smoldered across the valleys, sending thick black smoke into the air. The Zoreth warships hung above the planet like vultures, their engines glowing faintly as they prepared for the next strike. Everyone on the surface believed the end had come. But then the sky changed. The stars themselves seemed to bend, as though the heavens were opening. From the blackness, shapes emerged, vast ships, larger than anything the HFY had ever seen. They were not sleek like the Zoreth vessels, which were sharp and elegant, designed to intimidate as much as to kill. These newcomers were different. Their hulls were angular, brutal, and armored, like predators forged from iron and war. Some bore scars, long gashes where weapons had once torn through them. Others carried strange markings, symbols unknown to the galaxy. No insignias. No flags. Only silence. On the ground, the HFY civilians who still lived pointed to the sky. Their eyes widened. Mothers clutched their children. Elders whispered words of awe and fear. Commander Voss, still at the command center, leaned over the sensor displays as his officers scrambled to interpret the impossible. These ships did not exist in any record. No neighboring empire claimed them. No traders had ever described them. The Zoreth saw them too. Their fleet shifted uneasily. Their commander barked orders to identify the intruders, but the scanners could not provide clear answers. Their hulls were strange, their engine signatures unknown. Whoever they were not allies, and they were not prey. And then a signal cut across the comm channels. It was not the cruel bark of Zoreth speech, nor the trembling pleas of the HFY. It was something new. The words were rough, deep, alien, spoken in a tongue that translators strained to render. And yet, somehow, the meaning carried clearly enough. One word. One name. Earth. The Zoreth fell silent. The Yet-Hari officers looked at each other in confusion. The name meant nothing to them. No world, no colony, no species had ever borne such a name in their archives. Yet the way it was spoken, calm, firm, unyielding, carried weight enough to make the room tremble. Above, the Zoreth fleet opened comms. Their commander's voice thundered through the void. Unknown vessels, you enter Zoreth space. You interfere in Zoreth conquest. Withdraw, or be destroyed. The alien ships gave no reply. Their weapons powered slowly, steadily, until the dark sky glowed with their fury. On the ground, the Yet-Hari huddled in silence, too afraid to breathe. For weeks, they had begged for help, and no one had come. And now, strangers had appeared. Strangers who spoke of a world called Earth. Strangers who carried war in their bones. The Zoreth laughed, though uneasily. To them, all defiance was foolish. But their laughter did not last long. For when the first shot came, it did not miss. A Zoreth warship, massive and armored, split apart in a single strike, its wreckage burning as it fell into Yethar's atmosphere. The Yet-Hari stared in disbelief. The Zoreth commander shouted for retaliation. The sky erupted with fire. Beams, missiles, and strange weapons the Yet-Hari could not name cut across the void. And through it all, the strangers from Earth moved with terrible purpose, striking not with rage, but with precision. The Zoreth, who had never known defeat, faltered. The Yet-Hari, who had never known hope, felt their hearts race. Commander Voss whispered into the silence of the command center, his voice trembling. Who are they? Who dares challenge the Empire? No one answered. The only reply was the thunder of battle, as the galaxy shifted in ways none of them could yet imagine. The first clash began without warning, without hesitation. The Zoreth had ruled the stars for centuries. They were conquerors, masters of fear, certain of their own strength. But against these strangers, their arrogance became weakness. The unknown fleet moved like hunters who had waited for this moment all their lives. The sky above Yet-Har exploded. Beams of energy ripped across the void, burning trails into the dark. Zoreth ships, built to overwhelm weaker foes with sheer numbers, broke formation. They had never faced an enemy that struck with such precision. Where the Zoreth fired in waves, desperate to smother their opponents, the strangers from Earth fired with cold intent, every blast, every missile, every strike finding a target. One Zoreth cruiser, proud and bristling with weapons, caught 3 glowing projectiles along its spine. It cracked open like glass, its remains tumbling into the atmosphere. Another was flanked by 2 of the alien ships. They did not batter it with fire, they cut it apart with surgical strikes, disabling its engines and weapons before tearing the hull to pieces. On the ground, the Yet-Hari watched the night sky turn into day. Their enemies, who had seemed invincible, now burned. Fire rained down, not upon them, but upon the Empire. Hope stirred, faint but alive, for the first time since the war began. But the battle did not remain in the heavens. A streak of light split the atmosphere. One of the Earthships, a smaller craft, sharper in design, pierced the clouds and descended. It did not crash. It did not falter. It landed with purpose, near the ruins of Yethar's capital. The earth shook as its engines roared and died. Dust billowed, fire smoldered, silence fell. Then, the ramp opened. From the shadows within, figures emerged. They were tall, taller than any Yet-Hari. Armored head to toe, their plates black and unyielding, glowing faintly with lights that pulsed like living fire. Weapons hung at their sides, strange, heavy tools of war that seemed to hum with restrained violence. They moved with precision, with confidence, like predators stepping into their natural ground. The Zoreth, who had already landed troops on the surface, rushed to meet them. The Empire's soldiers roared, weapons ready, sure of victory. And then the strangers opened fire. The sound was like thunder, like the sky itself had broken. In moments, Zoreth soldiers fell, their armor shattered, their lines broken. The Earth warriors advanced without fear, each step deliberate, each strike final. The Yet-Hari hiding in the ruins watched in stunned silence. These were not diplomats. These were not traitors. These were warriors born for war, forged in battles no one else had witnessed. For the first time, the Empire faltered on the ground of Yet-Har. And for the first time, the Yet-Hari dared to believe the impossible. The Zorith could bleed. The strangers kept moving forward, cutting through resistance as though it were nothing. Their voices echoed through their helmets, harsh and commanding, words the Yet-Hari did not understand but felt in their bones. Orders given, orders obeyed, a machine of war unlike anything the galaxy had seen in living memory. Commander Voss watched the reports flood into the command center. His hands shook. His people whispered in awe and terror. He leaned close to the comms, his voice trembling. Who are they? Where do they come from? What do they want? No one could answer. But as the fires spread and the strangers pressed deeper into the ruined capital, one truth burned brighter than any question. Earth had come. The ground trembled as the strangers advanced. Smoke clung to the ruins of Yethar's capital, twisting through broken towers and shattered streets. Fires burned where the Zorith bombardments had struck, filling the air with ash and dust. The Yet-Hari survivors crouched in the rubble, their thin hands over their mouths, their wide eyes fixed on the figures who now walked through the chaos. They had never seen beings like these. The strangers moved with a discipline the Yet-Hari could not understand. Every step was measured. Every turn of their helmets carried purpose. Their armor, dark and angular, bore scars of past battles, proof that they had fought before and survived. The Yet-Hari whispered among themselves, half in awe, half in terror. These were not rescuers. These were not saviors sent by the stars. These were warriors, built for war, and nothing else. The Zorith did not wait long. Their ground troops surged from the streets, snarling, weapons raised. They had enslaved countless species before, these newcomers would be no different. Yet when they fired, their shots sparked harmlessly against the strangers' armor. And when the strangers fired back, the result was absolute. The sound of their weapons shook the ruins. Bolts of light, sharp cracks of thunder, streaks of fire that cut through the air, each one struck true. Zorith soldiers fell in seconds, their lines broken before they could regroup. The strangers advanced without slowing, without hesitating. Where the Empire had always brought fear, now it was the Zorith who knew terror. The Yet-Hari civilians huddled deeper into the rubble, their hearts pounding. Children clutched at their parents. Elders whispered prayers. But as the battle unfolded, something strange stirred within them. They saw the Zorith falter. They saw the Empire's soldiers, who had always seemed invincible, stumble back, cry out, fall in heaps of broken armor. They saw the strangers drive forward, unyielding, unstoppable. Hope. Fragile, trembling hope. A small Yet-Hari boy peered over the edge of a broken wall. His eyes widened as one of the strangers turned his way. For a heartbeat, the child froze, expecting fire. Expecting death. Instead, the warrior lowered his weapon. The glowing eyes of his helmet fixed on the boy for one long moment. And then, with emotion both strange and certain, the warrior raised one armored hand. Not in threat, but in something else. A gesture. A sign the boy did not understand, but which did not carry harm. Then the warrior turned back, rejoining his kind as they pushed deeper into the city. Commander Voss received the reports in the command center. His officers were in disbelief. They spoke over one another, voices tight with shock. The Zorith. They are retreating in the capital. The strangers are forcing them back. Voss leaned forward, staring at the maps. His claws dug into the console. The impossible was happening before his eyes. But his relief was tempered with unease. These warriors had come without asking. They fought the Zorith with unmatched strength, yes, but what did they truly want? No species risked war with the Empire out of kindness. No people spilled blood for strangers. Voss spoke aloud, his voice low, trembling with both awe and fear. They are not here for mercy. They are not here for gratitude. They are here for war. And the question we must ask is, what happens when the war is done? Outside, the strangers pressed onward. Through fire. Through rubble. Through the enemy that had once seemed invincible. And the Yethari, for the first time since their skies had burned, began to whisper the name they had heard carried from the stars. Earth. A word none of them had known before, but which already felt like thunder in their hearts. The Zorith did not forgive. Across the conquered stars, word spread of Yethar. A minor colony, barely worth notice, had somehow resisted. No one understood how. The reports were fragmented, garbled, filled with impossible claims. Fleets destroyed. Soldiers slaughtered. An unknown force had appeared from the void, striking with precision and fury, and the Empire had tasted defeat. For the first time in centuries, the Zorith throne room echoed not with triumph but with silence. The Emperor's advisors spoke in hushed tones. These are not rebels. These are not pirates. They are something new. Something dangerous. The Emperor's eyes burned with rage. The Zorith had built their empire on fear, fear that no one could ever oppose them. Now, that illusion had cracked. If one species could defy them, others might follow. That could not be allowed. So they gathered their strength. Across dozens of worlds, fleets were recalled. Shipyards thundered with activity, forging new weapons, preparing for war. Soldiers were taken from their homes, pressed into service, trained, armed, and told the same thing. The strangers must be crushed, no matter the cost. On Yethar, the war had not stopped. The Zorith who survived the first battle had regrouped, their forces still vast. Yet they did not strike again immediately. They waited. They circled. They tested. Because even they felt it. Fear. Fear of the warriors who had descended from the sky. Commander Voss stood in the dim light of the command center, listening to the latest transmissions. His officers relayed fragments caught from Zorith comms. Fleets were on the move. Reinforcements, massive reinforcements, were coming. His stomach tightened. Yethar had been spared for now, yes, but the storm was only beginning. They will not let this stand, he whispered. They will bring their entire fleet if they must. They will drown us in fire until nothing remains. One officer glanced at him. Then what of the strangers? Will they stand and fight? Voss did not know. Above, the ships of Earth still hung silent in orbit. Their dark hulls loomed against the stars, unmoving, implacable. The Yethari had seen their warriors on the ground, seen them tear through the Empire's troops with terrifying skill. But they had not spoken. Not truly. They had not explained why they came. Until now. A transmission broke the static. It came not in fragments, but clear. The voice was deep, calm, steady, the voice of a commander who had seen war and did not fear it. We do not retreat, the human said. We do not abandon those who call for aid. The Zorith think themselves masters of the stars. They are wrong. They will learn. Earth has come. The Yethari in the command center froze. The words echoed like thunder. The humans had not come for trade. They had not come for conquest. They had come for war. Yet still, questions lingered. Why? What drove them to risk everything against an empire that had crushed all others? What kind of world-birthed warriors who would stand against such odds without hesitation? Voss could not answer. None of them could. But as he stared at the human fleet, steady and silent above their world, one thing was certain. When the Empire returned, Yethar would not face it alone. Far away, in the void between stars, the Zorith armadas gathered. A storm unlike any the galaxy had seen in living memory was taking shape. Billions would march. Thousands of ships would fly. And all of it would be unleashed upon one enemy, one word, one world the galaxy had only just learned to fear. Earth. The stars vanished. One by one, the points of light above Yethar were swallowed by shapes so vast they blotted out the heavens. The Zorith fleet had come. Not a raiding party, not a strike force, but an armada, the greatest gathering of ships the Empire had unleashed in generations. They stretched across the void like a wall of steel and fire, each vessel armed, armored, and ready to crush whatever dared defy them. On the surface, the Yet Hari felt the ground shake as the fleet's engines roared in orbit. Those who had survived the first invasion wept, certain that this time there would be no escape. The humans, few though they seemed compared to the endless tide of Zoreth warships, remained silent. Their dark ships held position, scattered in precise formations, waiting. In the command center, Commander Voss gripped the edge of the console until his claws ached. His officers whispered in fear, their voices tight. "There are too many, they will overwhelm them, nothing can stand against this." Voss wanted to believe otherwise, but when he looked at the display, even his hope faltered. The human fleet was strong, yes, but compared to the ocean of fire descending on them, they looked like stones cast into a storm. The Zoreth hailed them. The Emperor's chosen voice filled the comms, cold and certain. "Unknown vessels. You have struck at the Zoreth. You have killed our soldiers. You have spilled our blood. There is no forgiveness. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift. Resist, and your name, Earth, will be erased from history." The humans answered with silence. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then the comms crackled. The reply was not a plea, not an excuse. Just a single voice, steady and unshaken. "Come, then." The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. And then the stars erupted. The first Zoreth volleys screamed across the void, thousands of beams and missiles tearing through space. The humans answered in kind, their weapons flaring like suns. The battle began in fire and fury, a storm of destruction that shook the system to its core. Zoreth ships pressed forward in vast numbers, confident that weight alone would break the enemy. But the humans did not fight like prey. Their ships moved with strange precision, weaving through the chaos, striking at weak points the Zoreth did not know they had. A battleship fell. Then, another. Then a carrier, its engines torn apart by a strike so sudden it never fired again. Still, the Empire pressed on. For every ship destroyed, 10 more advanced. The sky burned with their fury. On the ground, the Yet Hari could see the flashes of battle from the surface, as if the night itself was at war. Some covered their faces, unable to watch. Others stared in awe, whispering prayers for the strangers who had come when no one else dared. And yet, for all the courage of Earth's warriors, the tide of the Zoreth was immense. Their fleet stretched beyond sight, their firepower endless. Even as they fell, more came, wave after wave, a sea of war that threatened to drown the humans entirely. Commander Voss felt his chest tighten as he watched the map of the skies. "They cannot hold," he whispered. "Not against this." But then, something happened. Something no one expected. A single human ship broke formation. It surged forward, engines blazing, cutting through enemy fire like a spear hurled into the heart of the storm. The Zoreth focused on it, laughing at the foolish charge. But the ship did not slow. It rammed headlong into the Zoreth flagship, tearing through its armored hull, detonating in a fireball so vast it lit the entire sky. The Empire's command ship, the pride of its fleet, broke apart, its remains scattering into the void. Silence fell. For the first time in centuries, the Zoreth flagship had been destroyed in open battle. And the galaxy trembled at the proof. The Empire could fall. The void smelled of metal and fire. Pieces of the Zoreth flagship tumbled like stars gone mad, burning as they fell. For a moment the universe itself seemed to have stopped. No engines hummed, no weapons screamed. Only the echo of the explosion rolled through space and into the bones of every watcher who still lived. The Zoreth armada staggered. Pride, which had once been their shield, cracked and fell away. Without the flagship, their fleet wavered. Orders came late and wrong. Ships that had moved as one now bumped into each other, confused. Where once their formations had been perfect, gaps opened like wounds. The Empire's soldiers, trained to obey without question, now hesitated. Commanders shouted into dead channels. Pilots who had never known fear felt their hands tremble. On the surface of Yet Har, The people watched the sky become a ruin of falling metal and light. They wept, not only for the fires and the dead, but because something impossible had happened. The invaders' strength had been broken. The ones who had been slaves to fear could breathe again. But victory is not a clean thing. It left questions where there had been only terror. The Zorith did not simply surrender. Their ships pulled back, not in honor, but in calculation. They had lost a flagship and many prideful captains, but the empire was deep and old. It held reserves, allies, hidden weapons. Retreat here meant regrouping elsewhere, amassing new fleets to strike harder, to make sure no one dared defy them again. The thought of revenge moved through the remaining Zorith like a fever. Across the freed worlds, the reaction was not simple joy. Some cheered and danced in the streets. Others watched and wondered, eyes narrowed with worry. Who were these humans? What did they want? Every species that had slept under the Zorith thumb now faced a new problem, gratitude mixed with fear. A savior could easily become a ruler. Commander Voss felt that fear like a blade. In the command center, he watched the feeds as one Zorith cruiser after another either exploded or limped away, their hulls torn. The humans had not merely won a battle, they had shown a way to break the Empire's armor. Messages flooded in from other systems, from traders and small colonies. The word spread faster than any ship could fly. Earth had come. When the humans broke orbit to lift survivors and secure the ruined zones, yet Hari hands reached for theirs without asking why. They opened food stores and fuel stores, handing what little they had to the strangers. The warriors accepted what was offered without ceremony. They worked with the efficiency of people who had done this many times before. Triage, evacuation, securing landing zones, pulling injured from wreckage. Where their weapons had been a storm, their hands were steady and sure. Then the human commander spoke to the gathered survivors. He did not stand on a throne or raise a banner. He came where the people had gathered in the red glow of watchfires, where children clutched frightened parents and elders held their heads high. His armor showed years of repair, scars cut across metal plates like mountain ridges. When he removed his helmet, the face beneath was plain and stern. His voice was rough, but his words were clear and calm. "We answer a call," he said. "Not for glory. Not for power. We answer when someone cries for help and no one else will come." The crowd listened as if the earth itself held its breath. The Zorith had done nothing for them but take. Here were strangers who had come without gain. That idea settled into the bones of the people like warm light. "We do not seek to rule," the commander continued. "We will stand where we are needed. We will leave when those who call for help can stand on their own. But the galaxy must learn one thing. If you walk away while others burn, you will not stay alone forever." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some nodded. Some looked worried. Who would enforce that lesson? Who would judge when the humans left? The commander's face remained unreadable, like a stone carved weather-beaten by war. News moved fast. Word of Earth's intervention reached systems that had never heard of yet Har. Small star nations, oppressed colonies, merchant clans, all of them listened. Some sent ships with aid and messages of thanks. Others watched hungrily, wondering which side to take. The Zorith, for the first time in a long age, had lost the cloak of inevitability. Rebellion could come like a plague. Within the shattered command structures of the Empire, fear turned to anger, and anger into dangerous resolve. Counselors whispered of punishments, of decades of retribution that would crush rebels and remind the galaxy why no one defied the Zorith. In the far reaches of the Empire, secret weapons were activated. In the star yards, hidden fleets were completed behind doors that had been sealed for centuries. Across these maneuvers, Earth did not stand idle. Their fleet, though far smaller than the Empire's, held new advantages, not only in weapons, but in tactics, in intelligence, in something that looked like time-earned patience. They did not press the victory into conquest. Instead, they shored up positions, took prisoners, and began a careful plan for the next moves. The commander's officers spoke in clipped voices over data feeds. They discussed supply lines, diplomatic signals, and the risk of a drawn-out war that could burn entire systems to cinder. Meanwhile, rumors sprouted like mushrooms after rain. Some said the humans had allies hidden beyond the furthest charts. Others claimed Earth had long prepared for a return, a hidden armada sleeping in the dark. The truth was quieter and stranger. Those rumors fed fear in neighboring empires, which in turn made strange alliances and secret pacts. The galaxy became less certain. Certainty had once been the Zoratha's tool. Now doubt fanned out like waves. In the ruined halls where the Zorath had once given laws, new faces appeared. Representatives from freed colonies claimed space to speak. Traders offered help. Spies moved like ghosts, seeking loyalties to buy, threats to exploit. The old order had cracked. In its place, 100 different futures jostled. Commander Voss watched all of it with the tired eyes of one who had lived too long under conquest to trust sudden change. He had tasted freedom, but he had also seen how quickly new masters rose where liberators walked. He looked up at the human commander when they met again, this time in a private tent lined with maps. "You saved us," Voss said without ceremony. "You called, and we came," replied the human. "Your voice crossed the void. We have rules. We answer those rules." His tone implied history, and the way his fingers brushed the map made Voss think he had fought in many such tents. "What will you do when the Zorath return?" Voss asked. The human paused. The sky outside still burned at the edges where battles had fallen. The simple answer could have been dangerous. The complex one could terrify. "We will not leave you to suffer under fear," the human said at last. "We will stand as long as we must. But we do not want to rule. We want the right of others to decide their fate. If the Zorath push, we will push back. If they attack from beyond, we will strike as far as we have to." Voss swallowed. It was not a promise easily kept. It was a threat that would invite war, and wars are like rivers that never run the way you plan. As the newly freed people cheered and the rescued mourned, a darker truth moved under the celebrations. The galaxy had been reminded that power answers power. Earth's warriors had shown a different balance, one that might reshape history. For some, that was hope. For others, it was terror. When the first delegations came to speak of alliances, the human commander listened. He did not smile. He placed a hand on the table and spoke with a voice that had been forged by loss and duty. "We answered a call once," he told the gathered envoys. "We will answer again. But know this, we did not come to conquer. We came because someone asked and there was no answer. Let this be the rule: help those who call, and remember who answers." The envoys looked at one another. Some bowed. Some turned away. The seeds of a new order were planted, but no one could say what would grow. Far above Yethar, among the stars still smoking with spent fire, a new hush took hold. The Empire would heal. It would gather new strength and send new storms. The humans would stand where needed and perhaps trigger wars none of them truly wanted. Alliances would shift, betrayals would ripple through the dark, and small worlds like Yethar would find themselves caught in the paths of greater powers. Commander Voss left the tent into the cold air. He looked at the sky where the human ships held vigil like dark moons. In his chest, hope and dread warred. He whispered to no one, yet to the whole night. "We were alone. We were wrong." Behind him, a human officer watched the horizon. She spoke quietly so only he could hear. "They called for help," she said. "We answered. Now the galaxy will know we are here." And the stars listened, waiting to see who would strike next. The Zorath did not rest. In hidden systems where suns burned red and cold, their engineers forged new fleets. They stitched together war machines from anger and pride, ships heavier, deadlier, with weapons not seen in generations. The loss of their flagship was not a wound that weakened, it was a scar that hardened. They would return, not just to punish, but to remind every world why the Empire had ruled for centuries. Whispers of this storm raced across the galaxy. Traders carried rumors in hushed voices. Spy networks confirmed the gathering. On peaceful stations, People looked to the stars with dread. And always, one question repeated like a prayer: would the humans stand again? On Yet-Har, the scars of battle remained. Cities lay in ruins, skies still showed the blackened trails of falling wrecks. Yet life pushed forward. Children played in the streets among shattered walls, elders rebuilt homes stone by stone, and Commander Voss tried to weave together order from the chaos. Every night he looked to the orbiting human ships, guardians that had not yet left. Their presence was both a comfort and a shadow. For every Yet-Hari who saw hope in those dark hulls, another whispered fears. What if the humans stay? What if they become what the Zorith were? The humans seemed to sense those whispers. They walked the streets without ceremony, offering tools, medicine, food. They asked for nothing in return. Their commander often stood among the people, not above them. When children approached him, he knelt so his eyes were level with theirs. Yet even in these quiet moments, there was an edge, an aura of restrained violence, like a sword in its sheath that everyone knew could be drawn again. Far beyond, in the council halls of neutral powers, debates roared. Some demanded alliances with Earth, declaring that only humans had proven strong enough to defy the Zorith. Others argued that allying with humans would only bring war faster, dragging them into conflicts not their own. The galaxy split along fear and hope, while Earth remained silent. They did not declare an empire. They did not demand tribute. They simply stayed where they were called. And then the Zorith made their move. From the dark edges of the sector, scouts reported new fleets massing, vast, disciplined, driven by rage. The Zorith did not send messages. They sent warnings in fire. A nearby colony, weak and undefended, was erased from the stars. Not enslaved, not conquered, burned to ash, its people turned to whispers. The Empire wanted the galaxy to understand. Defiance would be met not with chains, but with extinction. When word reached Yet-Har, silence fell across the rebuilt streets. Families clutched each other. Old veterans closed their eyes, hearing again the thunder of ships overhead. Commander Voss stood in the council chamber, his claws digging into the table. Around him, the leaders argued. Some shouted for resistance, others begged to surrender before the storm fell on them again. Then a voice cut through the noise. The human commander, standing tall in the dim chamber, spoke only 3 words. They are coming. No promises. No comfort. Just truth. The room froze. Some leaders looked at him with terror, others with hope. Voss met the human's gaze and saw no fear, only certainty. The certainty of one who had walked into fire before and returned. That night, as the skies darkened and the stars grew cold, the people of Yet-Har gathered once more to look upward. Human warships hung silent in orbit, their hulls like black knives against the void. The Zorith storm was on its way, vast and merciless. The galaxy held its breath. And deep in the shadows of space, far beyond any sensor's reach, the Empire's fleet lit its engines.